So we are at the end of our series of following in Jesus' footsteps, but that doesn't mean we stop following in Jesus' footsteps. We are called to be disciples of Jesus Christ, shaped by the teachings and life of Jesus. And so we have looked at the various things that Jesus has taught and what Jesus has done, and what does it mean for us to live that out. Today, I wanted to look at Luke 20:22. It's also found in other parts of the gospel that we're called to be servants. What does it look like to be a servant? Now, let's say that there is an airplane flying across the country and a passenger becomes ill. The flight attendants look through the roster and they find that there is a Dr. Smith. And they go to Dr. Smith and they say, "We have this passenger, he's sick. Can you help us?" Can the doctor help him? This doctor says, "I'm sorry, I'm not a doctor of medicine. I'm a doctor of economics. I don't have what it takes to help someone medically." You see, that doctor of economics has been shaped by the thinking of economics and economists and people with numbers and math and sociological understandings, not medical knowledge. He doesn't have the ability to help a person with medicine because he hasn't been trained how to think that way. When we say yes to Jesus, whether it is because we have been part of the church all of our life, and little by little we've been listening and following Jesus, and this has been part of us, or at our confirmation, or if we've had this big, huge aha moment where we have come forward and prayed a prayer and said, "Yes, Jesus is the one I want to follow." No matter how we have come to Christ and followed Christ, what we're saying is we want to be shaped by Jesus' teachings. We want to follow in his footsteps. And here's the issue. We have been trained to be something else. We don't realize it, but our culture is like the air we breathe, and it shapes us. And our culture shapes us to be something other than servants. None of us here that I know of can sit there and say, "Oh, I have servants and I know what it's like to boss people around." I don't know, unless somebody's hiding something out here. I have yet to meet anybody here that has servants. I know a lot of you would sit there and say, "I'd like to have that problem of having to unlearn how to be demanding of others in that manner." We'd all like to have a servant at least for a day, right? But none of us know it like that. All of us, though, have been shaped to be consumers. We just had the biggest shopping day of the year. And I believe tomorrow is Cyber Monday, and then there's all these different local shopping day was, I think, yesterday. And so there is this consumerism. We have been shaped to be consumers, and we don't realize how far it takes us and how far it infiltrates into our lives. But being a consumer is pretty much the opposite of being a servant. Because being a consumer, it makes it all about me. I can tell you, I can go into a store, and I am sure just about everybody here can, and as soon as you go in, we make decisions. How clean is it? How easy is it to navigate through the store? You look at the checkout lines. Do they have enough people on register? Is it easy to find somebody to help you? If you're lost in the store and you need to find, I just came in for one thing and I want that one thing, and I don't know where it is. Can you find somebody to ask for help fast? And we judge those stores just like that. And from the time we go in to the time we go out, we are assessing how well they treated me. Because it's all about me in the consumer culture. It's whether it's meeting my needs, whether it's okay, whether their service is what I deserve and what I'm paying for. We do it at restaurants, we do it at stores, we do it with our television, we do it online. That website is too hard to navigate. I'll never shop there again. And I'll go down the street. We are fashioned to be consumers. And it bleeds into every part of our lives. My neighbor is a good neighbor. Why? Because they help me. It's about what I can get from them. I remember when I was starting on the path towards going into ministry, and at the church that I was serving as Christian educating director, the bishop came. It was Bishop Viola Fisher at the time. She came to the church, and my uncle from New York came. My uncle from New York is an atheist, and he was there at the church because my grandparents were all still alive. Both my grandparents, Dodie from my mom's side and my grandfather Zeck from my father's side, they both attended this church. And so my uncle came, and he's there, and he sees me. He's like, "Why are you out here talking to me? The bishop's here." Go schmooze. Go network. Why? Because we use those relationships. We use people. How can we get ahead? How can I get that fast track in? That's what my uncle wanted me to do. Because that's what we do. Our consumerism even makes people a means to an end. Relationships. Well, this marriage is just not working out because they're not meeting my needs. I'm not happy anymore. It becomes about me. What I like. And it spills over into our worship in our church. We can make the service all about me. Because if I asked you who serves in the church, well, there's the people on the committees. On Sunday morning, it's the choir, the musician, we have greeters, we have ushers. Those are the people that serve, and the rest of us kind of just sit back and take it in. And I am guilty. When I go on vacation and I go to church, okay, I'm just going to go and sit down, and I will sit there and go, well, that's an interesting choice of a hymn when I look into the bulletin. Oh, and this message, I'm terrible when I go to a church service and I listen to somebody else preach. Because I start taking note, that's a good thing, I can say that. There's a sermon I can go off, and my mind starts going off on another sermon that I can give here rather than listening to what Jesus has for me in that moment. Or, oh my word, this pastor. That's not how I would say it. And it becomes a consumer. We are fashioned to become consumers. And everything passes through that consumer mentality. It happened to the disciples, even though they didn't have a capitalistic society at that point in time. The disciples still understood, hey, I've been on board since the beginning. My name is James, my name is John, my name is Peter and Andrew. We were the first 4 in on this. We got in on the bottom floor. So who's greatest among us? Because whoever's greatest among us gets to sit at the right hand of Jesus when the kingdom of God comes, because we expect the kingdom of God to come now. They still were not seeing the cross, even though in Luke 22, we are in Holy Week. This is time for the Last Supper. Jesus is being betrayed. He's going to the cross. They still don't get it. They're ready for the kingdom of God to come now and Jesus to actually sit on a physical throne and Rome to be kicked out. And when that happens, we put our time in, Jesus. We put our time in. So we should get something out of this. And Jesus takes all of this and throws it upside down and says, the greatest among you will be servants of all. And in John, during the time of the Passover meal, Jesus at this point takes off his outer garments, gets a basin and washes the feet of the disciples. And he says, you're not greater than I. If I'm doing this, you're supposed to serve one another. And it's not just serving one another in that specific place, at the Help for the Home shop, or at the food pantry, or as an usher. Every moment of our lives is an opportunity to serve. Instead of seeing my coworker or my neighbor as a means to an end, how can I serve them? How can I serve my spouse? How can I serve my children? It's not doing things for them. Jesus was not just washing their feet. He was enabling them to eat. Because they have sandals or are going around bare feet, and they're going to eat dinner not at tables, but their feet are going to be right in each other's face. We need to clean ourselves up before dinner. Jesus is enabling them and empowering them to be able to also participate in a religious meal that is more than just a typical dinner. It is reflecting the bigger story of community. How can you serve your loved ones? It's not doing things for them, but empowering them to be all that they can. Making it easier for them to be all that they can. How do we serve each other on Sunday mornings when we come into this space? I am not just sitting in a pew, but I am empowering the person next to me to be able to worship. I see that she's a little bit down. She's struggling. He's struggling. How do I take them with me? Let's sing this song together. Do we need to step out so that you can get a tissue? Do I need to get you a tissue? Do I need to help you in some way? Do I need to sing louder so that you feel more confident to sing louder? How do we empower each other and serve each other in this space? How do we make it not about me, but about community? How do we serve each other? Because that's what we're called to. We're not called to be consumers that consume everything, but servants. That doesn't mean that we don't bring our very best. It doesn't mean that we can't sit there and say we can do this better. But it's saying we can be servants, and I am here to serve you. And even in our making things better and helping each other, how do we make space? I really love that hymn, but they don't like that hymn. I can give that up. Oh, that person's really noisy when they're here, but I can lay aside. I can move to a different spot so I don't have to hear it as loud. I can be inconvenienced so they can be in the presence of God. One of the things that is beautiful about this church that has not happened in other churches is on Easter. God bless you all. I know you love your lilies. I know you love your hyacinths. and I am deathly allergic to those things. And you have decided that you would rather have me than lilies and hyacinths, and I appreciate that. I have had other churches, I've had other pastors who have sat there and said, their organist cannot play on Sunday mornings because the church will not give up their lilies. And so their organist has no place to worship on Easter Sunday because their church will not give up lilies. Oh, it's a small thing, but it's that we are going to make space for somebody else. Even though I love this, I'm making space for you. And I can give that up. I'd give up my turnips on Thanksgiving if it was going to keep people away from turnips. We need to make space for other people. You made space when you came here, when you came from other buildings and came here and built. You said it was important that people had access, even to this space, if they were in wheelchairs or had walkers. We are working on being welcoming to the deaf community. How do we make space for people that might have different tastes than us? How do we make space for each other? And that's what Jesus is saying. That's what it means to be a servant. It's to make space. And we have to think differently, because if we've been doctors of the economy and we need a medical doctor, we need to think differently. We've been trained to be consumers, and the call is to be servants. So how do we stop using our neighbors, our co-workers to get ahead, to make it easier on us? How do we make life easier for them and empower them to a full life? How do we empower each other to worship and experience God in a deeper way? That's the journey we're on. Following the life of Jesus is to create us into servants. To be people who don't ask, what can I get? But what can I give? I think there was John F. Kennedy who said it. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. It's a very Christ-like quote. Instead of country, though, ask not what they can do, your neighbor, your coworker, your husband, your wife, your children, your person across the pew, the choir, anybody else, what they can do for you. Ask what I can do for them. We're called to be servants. Because if you want to be great in the kingdom of God, it means to be a servant of all. Following after Jesus means we are going to serve. And so how can we serve? How can we serve our shut-ins? How can we serve each other? How can we serve our youth and our children? You were never meant to be pew warmers. You were meant to be servants. So let us go and be servants of all. Amen.